Welcome back to Max XP. I apologize, my voice is a little lower. I am feeling a little bit under the weather, so I've been kind of MIA a little bit recently. I hope everybody else is doing okay. Hey, if you like the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, do the whole shindig. I was going to go with the format of doing the video essay, but this time, just because I'm not feeling super hot, I wanted to do something really quick and something I think about all the time. You know when you have that feeling where like you want to pick up a game that for some reason you just have a want for a specific feeling or a specific aesthetic. What I was thinking of is how many times I've been like, you know what, I really want to play something that makes me feel like I'm in Lord of the Rings, or I'm I'm in a world similar to the Lord of the Rings. And many times I've actually gone out and like looked online, like games that are like the Lord of the Rings, because we don't really have any Lord of the Rings games out now that make you feel like you're getting into the epics, like you're diving into the Battle of Helm's Deep, or you're wandering the world of Middle Earth in a quest to destroy an ultimate evil. We don't have any of those Lord of the Rings games now. The ones we do have are not great. But with all of my research and all the games that I have played, I found a couple of games that I think you might want to put on your radar if you yourself are looking for games to play if you like the Lord of the Rings. Now, just housekeeping rules. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do. Make sure you hit the bell just so you don't miss anything in case we upload and you don't see it immediately. And comment. If you leave a comment, chances are I'm probably gonna comment on it on my own comment video, comment section, and share with friends, family. Let's see if we can get the sub count on this channel up a little bit. So without further ado, let's get into the video. First game on the list, The Witcher 3. Now, The Witcher 3 is a game that I don't know that many people who haven't played and haven't enjoyed it. This is one of the biggest, best games when it comes to medieval fantasy. The Witcher books were written by Andrzej Sapkowski, who a lot of people have taken to calling him the Polish Tolkien. Lord of the Rings was written by J.R. Tolkien, and Andrzej Sapkowski has such an intricate, beautiful world that he's built that has so many fantasy elements and so much world building involved in it that people have just taken him to calling him, like I said, the Polish Tolkien. And The Witcher 3 takes all the elements that Andrzej Sapkowski has built into the Witcher universe and planted it in a world that is seamless, that is I wouldn't necessarily say like not segmented, because it does have segmented areas that you kind of have to like warp around to. But the world itself is beautiful. The story is very emotional, and there's little stories that you'll find throughout the game that are very emotional. And I mean, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day that he just got through what we're going to call the Botchling quest, and he really felt that one, which I did at the time I played it as well. And that's just one quest. The game is filled to well over 100 hours, maybe even up to 150 hours of quests and stories, and everything has some sort of depth to it. This is not a light game. In fact, I would even call it the Witcher universe Lord of the Rings for grown-ups. It's very deep, it's very complex, and it's honestly one of the best medieval style fantasy games that I know of. Number 2, Dragon Quest XI-S. I was not going to go with any sort of list regarding medieval fantasy or fantasy in general without bringing up Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest XI-S, it has the magic, it has the monsters, it has the battles, and it has a party that is very colorful and very interesting. And honestly, I like all the party members to varying degrees, of course, but I like all of the party members. The story has some ups and downs and some very deep aspects and moments, and there are moments that are actually directly effective to the party. And what I mean by that is there's one particular moment that happens in Act 2 that, your party's separated, you go and gather the members of your party back up, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say there is some tragedy involved in several areas with party members. So, it reminded me of Lord of the Rings in that way, in that, nobody really escape the tragedy, but even in the face of tragedy, everyone still has the heart to keep fighting and keep going to defeat the greater evil. So the game is big, and even when you beat the main story and go into like the final act and you beat that, there's still so much left to do in the world, so many other little stories to find and to get involved in. It's a massive game. It's worth trying, and if you like Lord of the Rings in general, this is a good one to go for. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I was going to go with Tears of the Kingdom, but because Tears of the Kingdom has almost science fiction-y aspect to it, I kind of leaned a little bit away from it and went instead towards Breath of the Wild. And one of the reasons why is because Breath of the Wild has an epic battle against a formless evil that you can see it, it's there, kind of like the Eye of Sauron. Right at the beginning of the game, you can see this evil, but it doesn't have a necessary form until you go right up against it. And then at that point, it has to take a form, and it just becomes an amalgamation of every evil thing that you've had to face at that point. And it uses a soft magic system so similar to Lord of the Rings. There's a huge world to explore. There's some science fiction-y things and aspects in there, but there's more magic and fantasy elements there are than science fiction. So that's why I leaned a little bit more towards Breath of the Wild than Tears of the Kingdom. I personally prefer Tears of the Kingdom, but if you're going for that Lord of the Rings style feel, Breath of the Wild is probably the right say go in. Number 4, Kingdoms of Amalur. Now, I have done a big in-depth video on kind of the development behind the Kingdoms of Amalur with a little bit of commentary here and there. I'll put a card up for that. Kingdoms of Amalur has honestly one of the best video game stories that breaks the threads of fate. It takes a person that really doesn't have any real big fate ties to the world at large, and it makes them something that is of consequence, that will directly affect the world at large. And I mean, the system just allows for total player freedom. There's a massive world with beautiful aesthetics. There's characters that are fae based, so they're not like directly elves. There are some elves. There's dwarves, gnomes, your fantasy creatures, in addition to other creatures like fae and humans, elves, etc., etc. There's a lot of fantasy aspects in Kingdoms of Amalur that makes it probably closer to Lord of the Rings than most other games on this list, just because, at least as far as aesthetics and as far as world building goes, it's pretty similar. In addition to the gameplay itself, the Kingdoms of Amalur is well worth a go. It's one of my favorite games that I've ever played. One of the most intricate stories. Not to mention that the writer of it, R.L. Salvatore, wrote Dungeons and Dragons novels. So if there's anyone that has any real direct inspiration from Tolkien himself, it would probably be him. So you can see where the ties would come. Before we get to number 1, let's show some honorable mentions. And now for number 1, of course, I'm sure you guessed it, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Obviously, there's other Elder Scrolls games, but none of them quite captured that medieval epic fantasy that has the variety in its world like Skyrim. Obviously, Oblivion is, to some, closer, and to some, not quite, on that level of Lord of the Rings. But the Elder Scrolls, modern Elder Scrolls, is so heavily inspired by Tolkien that it's hard not to see the two kind of, if you melded the worlds, you wouldn't really be able to see much difference. Like, it would just meld together almost perfectly. Granted, Skyrim's people are a little more hardy and probably more interested in fighting than the people of Lord of the Rings are. That could be conjecture, but from what I've seen of Skyrim, they're happy to go pick some fights. And there's a lot of adult themes that you find throughout, more mature themes that you do find in Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is meant to be a little more digestible, broad sense of good and evil, whereas Skyrim can narrow down to the more good and evil within each person. And granted, just given that Lord of the Rings wanted to focus on the grand scheme of things, Skyrim wants to focus on the grand scheme, but also keep you tied down to remember that every person has some good things and some bad, similar to the Witcher universe. But unlike The Witcher, Skyrim is meant to be a little more, user-friendly, so to speak. And not to mention, the accessibility of Skyrim definitely puts it at the top of the list, just given that no matter what platform you're on, even if you're on voicing through your Amazon Alexa, it is still possible to play Skyrim. So as far as accessibility goes, this is the easiest one to get a hold of. And, that's my list for all the games that you should play if you have any interest in playing a game that makes you feel like you're in Lord of the Rings. So, hope you enjoyed the list. I apologize for the gravelly and not so great feeling voice, but, I hope you do stick around. Make sure you subscribe. I'd like to have you part of the crew. And, subscribe, share, do the whole shindig, how it goes. And we'll see you in the next one when I hopefully feel better. Peace off.